Hello, everybody out there on Facebook media. So I started a conversation yesterday on a Facebook thread, and within 1 hour, I had about 18 responses. I think now there's like 52 of you responding. So there's some passion around this subject of using the name priestess, right? There's a little bit of stigma behind it, and I wanted to just break it down a little bit. And what I asked was, when you hear the name priestess being used, what comes to mind, right? When you hear somebody referring to another as a priestess, or maybe using that to name themselves, like what comes to mind, right? And there's a lot of judgments that come to mind. I want to just thank Lauren Arrow kind of responded and created another thread in a Facebook Live right now about the taboo around the name and the cultural appropriation around using the name shaman, which is similar but has different context because of the cultural appropriation. It comes from a different culture in context. So the name priestess, yeah. And if you're coming on, you can wave. So how I want to begin is first share a little bit about my own personal story. And I'm feeling really I'm afraid that you're gonna all judge me, right? Because there's some strong opinions here. So I want to invite you to just hear me through a little bit, because I'm really also excited and passionate about this topic, and it feels really important. Like there's a new code coming through right now, and I kind of want to help crack the code and open up these conversations in the community. And I know that the new way that I can advocate, educate, and empower not only women in my life, but my entire community is by being transparent in my process myself. So I've entered into a deep process around owning or not owning the word priestess. We'll just say I'm still in process about that. But I kind of want to break down a little bit, like, what does priestess mean? You'll have some great definitions there. So we kind of know, like, the ancient term of the priestess is those who put themselves in a position of service, either to their patron deity, right? Those who are in service of a higher power coming through them. It could be to an Orisha, or to a god, or to a goddess. It could be just to God. It could be to the divine. But somebody who actually, in my opinion, puts their egos aside so that they can be in service of a divine power and a divine light, and for the benefit of sentient beings. Yes, hello. It's so nice to see you all that are jumping on. A priestess is not, and this is my opinion, but is not somebody who gets up on stage or goes out into the world and wants validation and is all shiny and shimmery and is just waiting for attention from other people to be validated inside. That is not what a priestess is, okay? A priestess is not the toxic, shadowy feminine that manipulates to get what she wants in her power. For me, that's not what a priestess is, okay? And I think a lot of you are assuming that's what is when we're hearing the name priestess being advertised out there. And I'm going to break down like that. You know, there's the modern day priestess, and then there's the ancient temple priestesses. So I sat in council just 2 nights ago with a group of 6 other sisters, and we came together because we all deeply revere each other and each other's work. We came together to counsel about some deep things that were carried in our heart, things that about our life's work that we're carrying out right now, and what that means to this day and age and to the planet. And out of all of those sisters that I sat with in circle, none of us call ourselves priestesses. None of us use that name in our advertising, our work, or our marketing. Okay, some of us have been ordained through lineages. Point being, there was a topic of conversation that came up. It was like the wounded temple priestess. Like, let's talk about the temple priestess wounds. And I was like, oh, there are temple priestess wounds? What are those, you know? And something that was coming through, which is just interesting. I'm just bringing this up for topic of conversation. And I am going to go a little bit more into my personal story after this, but this conversation was like, okay, the temple priestesses were wounded. Like, they were in service of the divine and working behind the veil. Meaning behind the veil means like not needing to be seen, underneath the surface, to actually benefit the lives of other people, to awaken awaken other people, whether it be in sexuality or in just freeing them from their ego and their own suffering, right? And then there's a time that, and a lot of times it was, the story goes, armed men came in and like raped and took the power away. So there were times that people took the priestess's power away from them. And know what happened? There are times when priestesses in return misused their power to try to get it back. And we've all been there and done that, and I think can relate to this. If you can relate to it, let me know, right? I'm going to be kind of non-biased here, but there are some pieces that I am going to own. Anyway, so it's just interesting to sit with like, oh yeah, there's the wounded temple priestess archetype. Yeah, how can I relate to that? Anyways, in my own story here, I'm going to own something because this is part of the reason why I'm in the process right now. I have never like publicly come out and said, hey, I am an ordained priestess. I have never put that in my bio, although for reference, it's in my bio that I am an ordained minister through the Fellowship of Isis and also through the Oklahoma Native American Church. There are reasons that I put it into that type of phrasing. I don't actually want to... Okay, we're still there. I don't actually want to be known as a priestess because of all the stigma and taboo that's out there around it. But yes, in 2010, I became ordained as a priestess of Isis through the Fellowship of Isis. Okay, I'm owning that. And you might have judgments and you might have questions, and that's perfectly okay. And I didn't do it for any of you, and yet I did it for everyone and everything. It was a very personal decision and commitment that I made, a vow unto myself, okay? And yes, there is lineage to it. Some of it might look kind of woo-woo, and some of it is really ancient and old, and some of it is contemporary, and I'm going to speak to that in a moment, and I'm going to speak a little bit to why I chose ordination and initiation in this life. There is a piece around permission and validation for our gifts, you know. I knew that I came in here with gifts to share with the world, healing gifts, and I personally didn't have the confidence to carry them out on my own. So I sought out an elder. Her name's Kalita Todd. She does live in California here. And I sought out lineage to not only validate and give me permission to carry forth my gifts in the world, but to help me get out of my ego so that I could be in service of my gifts in this life, because nothing else made sense. Nothing. And so when I took those vows back in 2010, I had gone through a year-long mentorship, and I had two other sisters that were in that with me. And it was very personal, and it still is very personal, okay? Because I made vows to myself, and I have not to this day broken those vows. I'm not going to say what all they are, but it's something like, how would I put it into words? Getting out of my own way. Getting out of my own way. So all those places where you all are judging that the term priestess might associate to someone's ego, a true priestess, and I'm not perfect, and I'm not saying I'm the true priestess. You can, decide or judge whatever you want, but I'm saying a true priestess, when they're called to be in service, they drop their ego, they drop their act, they dropped everything because they're being called to something higher. So I feel like that's really important. Nice to see all of you who are jumping on. I love my community. Yes, nice to see Halo, Pachan, Gabrielle. I don't know if you're saying your name right. Okay. Anyways, I love you all. And I feel like there's an acknowledgement, right? I see many other sisters where we look at each other and we understand like a deep level of transformational work and places that we have walked in this lifetime and things that we have done that have not been acknowledged by others. And we just kind of greet each other. We don't have to say it. We don't actually have to say it. We meet in our eyes and we understand that there's a contract there, and the souls understand what we have been through. You might relate that to the priestess path. You might not. So something about permission, right? A lot of us want permission for our path, for our gifts, a lot of us want validation, and we're seeking that. And we might be seeking that by using the name priestess in our, hi, I'm a priestess. But honestly, like personally, I've never shook my hands with somebody and said, hi, I'm a priestess of Isis. Nice to meet you. You know, personally, like that doesn't work for me. And, you know, ordination is about a deep marriage unto yourself, right? And it still is to me today. I mean, this is the first time that I'm maybe coming out and saying, yes, I'm ordained as a priestess of Isis. I don't know what that means to you. I could speak about what it means to me, to hear that. Yes, so lovely to see you all. So it might not be that way for everyone. It might be that some women out there are calling themselves priestesses and they feel a connection to a higher power and to a source. I'm going to speak about that in a little bit in the end of the call, but I think it's important. I have always personally, and I'm sharing this personal story, but for me it's not about me. It's actually about the women out there that want to be freed. I think it's about those who are feeling bondage of their egos. They're judging themselves and they're not able to come forward in the world with their gifts, right? Because they aren't feeling confident or validated, or that they have the permission or that they have the right guidance. I've always been seeking guidance, you know, I've always been seeking permission. So I think an important word about those of you who want to step forward in your gifts and share your power, that like, yes, having permission is important, because some people are like, oh, I received this from spirit. I feel that I have permission, you know, and they just go forward and there's no true context to where that permission actually came from. And so sometimes there's a lack of integrity or respect. And so, yes, like some of you were posting below your comments about like, well, it depends the context of using the word priestess, like they're a priestess of who or of what, you know, of what tradition, and where does that come from? And then you get to judge yourself, like, is that a valid tradition? I'm also part of 2 other lineages, and I know that looking back at these, another one is a female lineage in Mexico. And what happened too is like it was a lineage that needed to be revived, just like the Fellowship of Isis. Those are lineages of priestesses that needed to be revived because they were killed off 500 years ago. And so there's been a lot of pieces that have needed to be reclaimed. So people are reclaiming them in different ways in this day and age. And then they're starting lineages under them. When I started my, about 3 years ago, I took all of my life's work and all of the things that were coming through me, and I opened up the Obsidian Womb Apprenticeship. It was a 3-month program that I developed to really help women to transform their ancestral pain, their sexual trauma, and to relieve reproductive stress. I was so afraid to put this like development out in the world, okay? And I had already, like, I would say somewhat of permission and ordination in 3 different lineages, and I had to literally go back to those lineage holders, to those teachers, and tell them, hey, look, this is the program I created. Do I actually have permission to do this? Like, do I have your blessing? And I literally thought that they were like maybe not going to give me their blessing or judge me, and each and every one of them just completely like gave me their full blessing. And I still do have people who question the integrity of my work, or whether or not it comes from a place of permission. And know what? It doesn't matter, because it's getting people results that they need, that are relieving their suffering and making their lives a little bit better. So another piece about the priestess, so I was thinking about how a lot of people hear the name priestess, and I want to invite you, you know, when you hear that name being used, because I'm not like standing for it should or shouldn't be used today. I want to be a little bit non-biased about that, although I have opinions. I love you too. I got passionate and like trailed off. I'm just gonna take a breath. I invite you, when you hear somebody actually using that name in their title or in their biography, or you're just coming across a friend and they're like, oh, that person is a priestess, right? Instead of just immediately judging them, because our mind goes to judging their ego, and that's actually our ego. So if you're judging that, or if you're judging me, the judgment's right back on you, right? Like, we actually trying to eliminate those things. Get curious, like, why is that person using their name? Like, what are they trying to reclaim in themselves? Or what type of power are they trying to bring out into the world in this day and age? Because there were the ancient temple priestesses and there are contemporary priestesses, and they have always existed. Sex workers have always existed. There's been many, yes, and medicine people have always existed. So I sat in, there's a squirrel jumping from the tree. So as I sat in meditation with this, I was in a deep kind of business like retreat, because I'm an entrepreneur and I have to move through my blocks to bring forth my gifts into the world, because it's really hard this day and age to figure out how what you do fits this economy and supports you back. I sat in deep meditation and I was thinking about, wow, there's a misperception. I don't want to use the name priestess, but I'm considering it. Like, why am I don't want to use it because of all the taboo and judgment around it and the way that I judge other people who use it. And I understood the toxic feminine. And I understood that shadowy feminine that manipulates her power. You all know what I'm talking about. Because they're the imbalanced feminine, and then, there's the imbalanced masculine that is also destroying the planet. But anyway, I understood. There's like this whole code came through me in blue and purple light. And anyways, I understood, wow, the true priestess, at least for me, in myself, the true priestess is the opposite. It's the opposite of the toxic feminine. Those who are holding that are actually standing for manipulating their power to do good for all humanity. And yeah, the word manipulate is not need to be negative. We're manipulating things all the time to get the results that we want. And it can be from a place of divine light, let's say in channeling, or it could be from a place of having lost power, misuse of power, misconstrued power. So a lot of it is about power. And power's okay, it's a great thing. So that's my invitation, is get curious. Does anybody have any questions? I'm just going to share like one more little thing about the permission and lineage and validation for our gifts. No questions? Okay. If ever in doubt, yes, go to an elder. Go to somebody that is a mentor that you look up to. Seek, I wouldn't say like validation can be positive and negative too, but like my invitation is just like, seek permission to bring forth your powerful gifts into the world, because we do want to be culturally appropriate. We do want to be respectful of others. Also, I am another big reason that I'm in this process with all of you today is that I've been pushed by my teachers have been telling me the past few years, like, you need to turn this into a year-long program. You need to put a year-long program out. And I have had that outline for a few years and all this content and a deep feeling like I'm holding myself back from the next layer of work that I'm about to birth into the world, because 3 months is like actually not in integrity with my soul's calling anymore to just have 3-month groups. It's actually important that I have work with people for at least a year, 13 months. And so as I was developing my program, I sat like on this hot seat, like in a kind of mastermind group, and everybody's like trying to help me land a name for the program. Like, what am I doing? And I understood, like, wow, this feels like a priestess program, but I don't want to call it that. I don't, and what is it? I'm teaching, I'm teaching women to advocate for their health and to heal their wounds and to not only regulate their vitality, but to also claim their gifts in the world. So this feels like I'm teaching them to initiate and to be priestesses. And so do I call it a priestess path? I don't want to. And so I really played around with that name, and they came up for me, the embodied path of the priestess. Like, well, at least you can be embodied and in your body about what you're doing. I don't think I'm going to use that name. I'm totally like maybe embodied female leadership, right? Something like that. Thank you for jumping on, Lauren. It's nice to see you. I invite you to kind of listen all the way through if you haven't. I do want to hear your feedback, just comments, like, what is this bringing up for you? What type of conversations can you start to have with your community about the misconstruing of these names and kind of the paradigm around them? And are we reclaiming them, Or are we just reclaiming a part of ourselves that wants to be true and authentic and empower? Yeah, be true to you fully. Thank you. Yeah, it's so hard to do that. And interestingly enough, it's like you just got to get on camera and be yourself. Because when you try to be something you're not, then you're not that, and people see it. Right? I want to share one more thing. I'm going to pull it up on my computer because I think it's an interesting, it just kind of brings a little bit of food for thought to leave you with. Cool. So I don't know if any of you know Elizabeth Wilcock. I'm just actually kind of hearing her name for the first time. She has the Priestess Path, right? A whole kind of initiation program. You know, there's a part of me that looks at her website and I'm like, what validates her? This is a little bit like new agey. She went to shamanic studies, and I don't actually mean to criticize her here. I actually really love what she wrote on her landing page, and I want to speak to it because I just want to like open us up to being open and not judging. There have always been priestesses. In every time and place, there have always been priestesses. Women of power, in tune with the sacred. Sisters, daughters, mothers, crones, birthing, bleeding, healing, and deathing together. There have always been priestesses. In all societies that cherish the sacred, women are honored for their unique power and abilities, carrying the codes of the womb creatrix. Women are the life givers, caregivers, midwives, wisdom keepers, lovers, healers. It is time for the priestess to return from the shadows of history to touch this thirsty earth. One woman of power, woman of wisdom, remember, you are eternal, sovereign being. Your spirit is a noble queen. Embody her. You have come here for a reason, with a special gift for this world. Now is your time to embody the fierce love and beauty that the world is thirsty for. Calling down the light, kiss the earth, live your life as a blessing. So when I hear this and I see this, it's like, it's beautiful. Like, she's standing for the empowerment of women and inviting them to step into their memory and power and gifts so that they can also be servicing them in a good way, right? I think of like, how can we do this? You know, how can we be the modern day and age priestesses? And like, does that word need to change? Is there a better name for it? Like empowered feminine, empowered medicine woman, empowered female leader? Like, how can we kind of let go of some of our judgments around it? And yeah, you might judge somebody who's still wounded and on their path and trying to figure out their power and calling themselves a priestess before they've had any permission or ordination or direction. Like, yeah, I might get curious about that person. Thank you, Michaela. We need a reframe around the word priestess, and woman like you come forth to stand your... Thank you. That's really sweet of you to say. Okay, I feel like there's more. There's more, and we're just going to continue this. Maybe there'll be another Facebook Live. I do want to talk about power. I want to talk about permission. I want to talk about respect. So let's just want to say, Omateo, and thank you to all my relations, and respect and love to all beings out there. I love you all, and wishing you a beautiful afternoon. Bye.